All right. Well, Sydney, are you ready to talk to Lisa in Canada?
Let's do it.
All right. Lisa's question is about atheistic morality, one of my favorite subjects. Lisa, what's on your mind today?
Hi. So I'm an atheist myself. I make content on, atheism versus theism on some of my social media stuff. And when I come into contact with theists, this is particularly more so Christians, sometimes Muslims. They assert that they are somehow morally superior to me, and they say, well, you don't have a construct, like a framework of what is moral. You're borrowing from the Christian framework that was instituted in the U.S. or North America, and
never mind where that Christian framework came from or was begged, borrowed, and stolen from. But yeah, okay, sure. Right. I hear that.
Right.
And I don't know always what to say. And it's not because I know that. It's not because I think they're right. I know they're wrong. It's just, it's so insulting to have people justify barbarism in the Bible, telling me that I don't have morals when I don't need a book to know that it's wrong to murder people, right? So how would you as an atheist respond to that? I just find it's incredibly insulting. And it seems like they're just not interested in listening to anything outside. And I want to specify, this is not all Christians. This is not all monotheists. Sure. This is just, some of the more, how do I say this? Some of the more indignant ones, I guess you could say, the ones that are so against people having questions about God or the existence. And this is not everyone, so I don't want to generalize. It's just like, the thing is that I will respond with kind of my morality personally comes from empathy and how my actions impact the well-being of others. That's how that's where my morality comes from, because you can objectively tell when someone is in distress based on their experience from another person's actions. So that's how I kind of derive my morality from. But it kind of seems like no matter what you say, no matter how no matter what reason you give, despite all the research we've done in social psychology, it's just, if you don't adhere to their specific belief style, you have either A, the wrong morality, or B, no morality. And it's very frustrating to have that conversation because, we want to have productive conversations, right? I mean, I'm just wondering, sorry to babble on too much. I just wanted to...
No, not at all.
I think you're really on the right track. I think Sam Harris would define morality as having to do with the well-being of conscious creatures. We might say the beneficence or non-malfeasance towards conscious creatures. His book, The Moral Landscape, is definitely something that I would encourage you to check out. I think it does a great job of laying out some of these arguments. So, when you talk about empathy and you talk about seeing distress, I think that we can use reason and science to, if not always perfectly measure and address in every way that distress, we can certainly see it and work to understand it and then to do things about it. Sydney, how does that grab you?
So, you bring up some interesting points. I tend to think more on a more basic level when people ask me this question, just because, in my opinion, if heaven is literally the only reason they're not murdering and raping people, please stay religious. That's what I always say to people. I'm like, listen, if the only reason you aren't doing these things is because you get a reward afterward, please continue to go to church. That's phenomenal. But also, I think, one, with a lot of the people that you're describing, there is nothing you can say to change their mind. There are some arguments that literally aren't worth having because the person comes in having already decided how they feel, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to say to change their mind. Two, just because someone says that they have a lot of like evidence and reasoning to back up the fact that they believe that atheists don't have a moral compass of any kind doesn't make it true. Just because they assert this, they say, well, atheists don't have morals. I can say whatever I want. I can spew my opinion all day long, but that doesn't ever make it fact. That never makes it something that has to be agreed upon by another party. You know, I can say cheese is gross, and somebody's like, actually, it's not that bad. And I'm like, nope, cheese is gross. The end. What do you have to say about that? That's just my opinion. That's not factual. That's not scientific. That's no matter how much I believe it in my heart and my soul, that doesn't make it the truth. But I would focus more on how you feel. You know, you're like, I don't want to kill people. I simply don't. I don't want to steal. I simply don't. That's just how I feel. It's not good for the tribe. It's not good for me as a person, whether it's because it's illegal. I would simply remember that you are alive, you have these thoughts, you are a good person, you do have morals, and you have all of these things regardless of whether or not the Bible exists. And Christy, you brought up a good point. The Bible is an amalgamation of other religions, other thoughts, other things that have existed. And they took all those ideas, they made the 10 Commandments, and then they said, see, look, you're copying my 10 Commandments. When in reality, murder is bad regardless of what religion you're in. I've yet to find, with the exception of the religions that maybe did ancient sacrifice back in the day, where murder was just allowed willy-nilly. You could just kill people for no reason. That's always been bad for the tribe. That's always been bad for survival. That's always been frowned upon. And it's ridiculous to think that this version of Christianity that we go by now in the Christian Bible is the reason why nobody does anything bad. I feel like that was kind of a long-winded way of saying they didn't make it up. They didn't invent it. It's ridiculous to assume so. And it's actually kind of concerning to think about the only reason they're not terrible people is because they want to go to heaven afterward. I would argue that atheists who have a moral compass are actually better than Christians who have a moral compass because they don't think there's a prize at the end. They don't think there's any reward they're going to get in the end for being a good person and caring about people. They're just good people and they just care about people. Now, not to say that all Christians are only kind because of heaven at the end, but these ones that you're describing that are militant, that are openly saying without a shadow of a doubt, atheists don't have any moral compass, those are the same people that concern me greatly, with the idea that they're just doing it for the reward at the end. And maybe we should focus more on that being of concern than where an atheist gets the idea that murder is wrong, or that certain crimes, they don't want to commit those crimes if they don't have a moral compass.
Right. The other thing I hear people, and again, this is only the militant kind of people. I've seen people host lives where, the prompt at the top is atheism is a mental illness, and I'm just like, are you? Is it like some of the times I'm like, no, not worth it. They're just rage baiting.
Haters are gonna hate.
But I think there are people just kind of like, I guess I don't understand. I intellectually understand it, but deep within me, I don't understand how someone could dislike another person so much just for being skeptical.
Because it's a threat.
I don't know how you could not challenge, what is wrong with how we learn about things, how we uncover new knowledge, how we gain insight isn't by blind obedience. It's, challenging things, critical thinking, You know, like
if you're going to have an in-group, you've
Need
got to
I-
have an out-group. And if your in-group is going to be right and great and perfect, then your out-group has to be terrible. And
Right.
it's a flawed and irrational way of thinking. It's naive tribalism, but it's part of our nature. And it's something that if we aren't mindful, thoughtful, careful with, we can really let take over our personality. And I think everybody in this conversation has experienced that from others.
Right. And if you're somebody who really wants to believe in the absolute truth of the Bible, hearing even one thing that makes you question even one thing that is said in the Bible pokes a hole in the idea that the Bible itself is infallible. So if you're that person, you would rather think in all absolutes, like, no, atheists cannot be correct. It's a mental illness. No matter what they say, it's something coming from a mentally ill person, than risk the idea that if even one thing is not true about what the Bible says, that risks many, many other things not being true about what the Bible says.
I see. Okay. Well, I just wanted to hear what your thoughts and opinion were on that. Thank you for letting me talk and having a good chat. So.
Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. We appreciate your call.
Yeah.
You have a great rest of your weekend.
I hope your Sunday goes well.
We got a little bit more show to do, and I'm hoping it goes well too, instead of just turning into, again, that YouTube comment section. So thanks so much for your time, Lisa. Take care.